Our sound off would take place at the ABC Home Cinema.
It was built by movie buff Anderson Jones in the back garden of his 3-bed semi. It's the perfect place to test out our 2 home cinema sound solutions.
War of the Androids, an absolute classic.
You should have got an Oscar for that.
Shall we get on with it then? Starting with a spec off.
So, this is the Yamaha YHT-1840. Get a positive swarm of speakers, all powered by this AV receiver.
Well, you can say that again. 6 speakers. Do you really need all those, John?
Well, if you really want to be surrounded by sound, I think you want as many separate sound sources as possible. You can't quite match that.
Ah, well, looks can be deceiving because in this compact Sonos Beam, I have got 5 amps, 4 mid-range woofers, 3 passive radiators, a tweeter, and not to mention my secret weapon, Dolby Atmos.
I know the Beam's a clever box of tricks, but can it really topple all this Yamaha hardware?
Well, let's find out.
Your first test will discover how easy it is to set your systems up.
I'm up first, and I could be in a bit of a tangle with this test.
You can't expect to get all this kit for this sort of budget without making a few compromises. And in this case, it's the absence of any wireless connectivity.
Yes, all the speakers have to be hardwired.
I'm starting with the rear ones, which should give my system a big advantage over George's. Actual physical sources of sound behind your ears.
To get the very best from my system, precise placement of the speakers is important. An angle of 110 degrees from your screen is recommended. And they should also be about ½ metre above your head. So I've obtained some budget speaker stands to help out.
Are you nearly done yet, John?
Getting there.
But still some way to go, because next I have to route the wires to the AV receiver at the front of the room.
Fiddly bit of wire, this. It's going in the hole. Yes, good.
Next, the all-important centre speaker, which delivers dialogue. It sits directly underneath your screen.
Exact placement of the subwoofer isn't so important because our ears can't tell precisely where bass sounds come from. Somewhere down here should do nicely.
And last but not least, the front speakers, which should be at head height and 30 degrees to the side.
I'm done.
About time.
At long last, it was time to hook up my Beam. HDMI and power connected, all that remains is to calibrate it. My phone's microphone records the way the beeps reflect off the various surfaces. And the Sonos app then optimises the Beam sound to create the best Dolby Atmos effect.
And that, my friend, is me done. Surely that's a comprehensive win for the Sonos Beam.
Grudgingly, I have to agree with you.
So that's 1-0 to my Beam, but something tells me things may not be quite as simple in challenge number 2.
Ooh. OK, test 2. Your second test will examine how accurately your systems can place sound around the room.
So we're going to make some noise and play it back through our systems. And for that, we need sound expert Kevin and his ambisonic microphone that can help pinpoint audio from literally any direction.
All we need to do now was make some noise, and who better to do this than a popcorn seller?
Popcorn.
Enter Jane, Anderson's wife.
Popcorn.
And as my Beam boasts Atmos, she'll even throw in a call from above.
Popcorn.
The test could now begin, and I was up first.
Popcorn.
Each of the 3 popcorns would be replayed through my Yamaha, and all I had to do was point in the direction they appeared to come from.
Time for my Beam, which employs clever acoustic software to trick you into thinking the audio is coming from different directions.
Popcorn.
But would it succeed in tricking me?
Test over. It was time to find out how well we'd done. Unknown to us, Jane had been standing in the original position she'd called popcorn from. So how closely had our sound systems replicated this? First, the Yamaha.
Are you confident?
No, not really, actually, because I didn't feel as though it sounded very precise where the sound was coming from.
OK, so this is sound 1.
Popcorn.
The rear speakers don't seem to be quite doing it here.
Not a great start, and it was a similar story when Jane moved to position 2.
Popcorn.
I'm just pointing very slightly to the right.
Finally, position 3.
Popcorn.
There is an angle to your arm there, John.
Yes.
Although it was more up in the air in front of me rather than up in the air behind me.
Given that the Yamaha's speakers fire the sound horizontally and it has no Dolby Atmos built in, this vertical element was quite a surprise. Nevertheless, the Yamaha had hardly shone in this test, and my prized rear speakers had failed to feature at all.
Could my Beam, that does come with enveloping Dolby Atmos tech, albeit virtually, do any better?
Popcorn.
Ah,
The answer is no.
no, you're definitely in front.
Yes.
The second position was much more accurate.
Popcorn.
And finally, our height test, which my Atmos-enabled bar handled well.
Popcorn.
And you've got a bit of height there as well. I think that the Sonos probably performed better than we would have expected. I think Yamaha was really slightly disappointing.
It was. Yes. I would say, based on the accuracy of our pointing,
Yes.
then it's the Sonos that clinches the win.
Yes.
So, despite my Yamaha having speakers dotted all over the cinema, it was George's Bijou Beam which could place the sound more accurately, giving it a 2-0 lead. But we haven't got to the most important part yet.
We'd been told to make ourselves comfortable where all would be revealed.
Right, test 3. Your third test will determine how immersive your sound systems are.
Right, I think this is the acid test of any TV sound system. Can it make an epic-looking film sound epic as well?
Let's see.
The film clip we'd be watching comes from the recent Netflix blockbuster, The Red Notice.
Hello, boys.
And if both sound systems do their job, we should feel like we're in the very middle of the action.
But not only has Red Notice got excitement and effects up to the eyeballs, it's also got Dolby Atmos. Great for my compatible Beam.
But not so great for the Yamaha, which lacks this feature. However, maybe its multi-speaker setup can compensate.
So, would it be a trilogy of wins for my soundbar?
Or a last-minute plot twist for my more traditional surround sound setup, which, by the way, has a hidden trick up its sleeve.
Now, if I press the program button, I can select Cinema DSP,
Right.
which provides natural and expansive sound imaging, apparently. Let's test it.
Take it away.
Shall we see what the maximum volume is?
My Yamaha can kick out a total of 500 watts from the main speakers and a further 100 watts from the sub. And while missing Dolby Atmos, its Dolby Digital Plus setup still makes an impression.
I was transported.
Yes. I mean, the engine sounds, the gun sounds, the collisions, the grunting.
The grunting?
Yes.
The subwoofer was really doing its job. I could feel the vibrations coming up through my feet. But most importantly, it sounded like it was coming from all angles.
It
We had
absolutely
a
did.
real sense of sound behind us.
So, when treated to a blockbuster soundtrack, the Yamaha really comes into its own, giving an impressively absorbing soundscape to revel in.
Are you not entertained?
For me, that is ticking the box of a cinematic experience. So
Yes.
I enjoyed that.
So did I. I'd be very intrigued to see whether the Sonos can match that.
Well, we are about to find out. But remember, John, my soundbar may be compact, but Sonos have still managed to squeeze a host of woofers, tweeters, passive radiators and amplifiers inside.
Right, Sonos Beam, do as your best.
And like John, I'd be turning the volume up.
Throw it. What? No.
Sonos don't advertise how many watts their Beam fires into the room. But amps inside the soundbar work together to drive the array of speakers, creating the surround sound effect.
It's definitely wider.
Yes, wait. Interesting.
Interesting. Now, you've got to remember, the Sonos Beam has Dolby Atmos. So, you know, do you feel like you can hear all the distinct parts?
I think it's better than just stereo, because you do actually appreciate these distinct sounds from an area that's certainly bigger than the TV picture, but it's not all enveloping.
No.
No.
What I would say, though, is that Sonos is probably a little bit better at handling the dialogue.
I thought that as well.
It's a little bit crisper, it's a little bit cleaner, as the Yamaha didn't quite have that, but what the Yamaha lacks in that area, it completely makes up for that feeling of being sort of enveloped in a soundscape.
So, despite clearer dialogue from the Sonos, when it comes to delivering an immersive cinematic experience, there could only be one result.
For me, the Yamaha wins very easily.
Yes, definitely. A clear win here on test 3.
Which means it's 2-1 to the Sonos overall. But after gaining a point in the all-important movie-watching round, has the Yamaha done enough to be awarded the gong?
Popcorn.
Well, the answer's yes, isn't it?
Well, it has to be. I mean, if you want real surround sound, there's no alternative to having speakers physically placed around you, right?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think what I will say for the Sonos Beam is that it is really convenient to set up, and if you just want to elevate your TV sound, then it's a solid choice.
I agree.
OK.